Thank you for joining us today. I'm State Representative John Koznick. I'm the Republican Chair of the Transportation Committee, co-chair. We have members of the Transportation Committee with us. And, House Republicans, we wanted to make sure that Minnesotans understood that House Republicans are working to make driving in Minnesota more affordable and transform the future of transit and transportation through innovation. There's a couple keynote bills that address these topics. And then we've also passed a number of other bills out of committee, and they'll be on the House floor on Monday. First off is reducing tab fees. Representative Anderson is the author on House File 3526. Minnesotans are now finding out how expensive it is to own a vehicle in Minnesota. In contrast to a recent Democrat member's remarks that they want to offer an amendment to quintuple our car tab fees 5 times, House Republicans have introduced a bill that we will vote to pass legislation that will lower car tab fees back to what they were prior to the over $900 million increase that was passed by the DFL trifecta in 23 and 24. Representative Anderson is the author, and she will tell you a little bit more about her bill.
Thank you. I'm State Representative Patty Anderson, Washington County area. So many of you have recently attempted probably to renew your tab fees. And it's an absolute sticker shock in the state. I have a friend who has a couple-year-old Tesla, not a very expensive car, $1,300. Folks, that is a rent payment. $1,300 just to renew your tab fees for a car that you need to get to work, for a car that you need to go to the grocery store, to bring your kids to childcare. That makes no sense. And Minnesota's become completely unaffordable for middle-class folks who are just attempting to support their family. $1,300. Even a car that's 7, 8 years old, the tab fees are $300, $400. That's crazy. And in the time when everyone is struggling to make ends meet, to put food on the table, the fact that we've made driving, unaffordable for people is wrong. We need to move the tab fee back to the way it was before the DFL trifecta dramatically increased the cost of driving a car. We have a bill to do that. We're going to push that hard because what we need is affordability here in Minnesota. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take some extra questions after I introduce a couple of the other bills. The other bill that we're getting a lot of questions on is automated vehicles, House File 3513. Following the successful legislation of automated vehicles in nearly half the states across the country and responding to public demand for the new technology, House Republicans are driving the future of transportation and innovation in Minnesota. We've worked closely alongside MnDOT officials, their industry groups, and who have studied to successfully roll out operations in other states. We have introduced legislation to legalize automated driverless vehicles in Minnesota safely, with accessibility, to realize economic promise, and, of course, regulatory guardrails. So far, our bill has been stalled in the Transportation Committee. After a revamp of the bill that incorporated many of the concerns that were voiced by committee members and the community, and recommendations of MnDOT and their Connected and Autonomous Vehicle Task Force, we hope that that bill will pass out of committee today, and we will continue to smooth out the other issues as we go through the process. But it must be understood that Republicans are standing for this, to embrace this new technology, and if we don't pass it out of committee today, Democrats are holding it up to not allow Minnesota to move forward and to innovate. In the Senate today, there is about to be a hearing on a number of bills that will require a person to sit in the driver's seat of a vehicle that drives itself. Imagine getting into an autonomous taxi, and there's a person, a guy, sitting in the front seat who may be humming or trying to make small talk or scrolling on his phone and getting paid. while the vehicle drives both you and the driver to your destination. A driver in a driverless vehicle defeats the purpose of driverless technology. It's unbelievable, and only in Minnesota would we mandate that a driver be required in a driverless vehicle. At the end of the day, consumers want automated vehicles, and widespread consumer adoption in other states proves that it's very popular, and the spread of technology is inevitable. Realizing this reality, Republicans have introduced and championed compromised legislation that will move Minnesota ahead. We shouldn't stifle innovation, safety, or economic expansion, or reliable transit. Automated vehicles will transform transportation. Automated vehicles that will transform transportation are not only coming, but they're here already. Republicans embrace the potential for new technology and the opportunity to lead Minnesota into the future. A third bill that we have is to streamline the busing operations and eliminate wasteful fraud in our transit system. In the metro area, there are 5 different bus services. Minnesota taxpayers shouldn't have to support the operational budgets of 5 different and separate entities anymore. Communities and transit has changed over the last 40 years that some of those other services were established. We have a bipartisan approach to consolidate them into one and eliminate millions in administrative overhead, redundant service, and the most highly subsidized routes. Currently, Minnesota taxpayers have been subsidizing some of these routes by as much as $200 per passenger per ride on regular routes, and as high as $55 a ride or $110 round trip on some on-demand service that's similar to Uber and Lyft. It would be less expensive to just give somebody an Uber or Lyft card and a ride. Combined, these suburban opt-out carriers have operating revenue reserve funds totaling over $44 million. This $44 million would be an extra and immediate savings to Minnesota taxpayers in the transit system, on top of the $50 million that would be realized as saved waste in the first year, and then ongoing $50 million in every budget cycle would be saved. For the total would be $94 million in the first year, and we are in the process of getting an updated fiscal note on that. Eliminating this waste frees up resources that can then be used to improve the frequency of routes and on routes that riders actually use. It shouldn't matter the color of the bus that you ride, as long as the bus takes people to where they need to go and want to go in the modes that they want to, while still respecting the resources of taxpayers. So those are the 3 bills: the reducing tabs, automated vehicles, and streamlining the bus operations. And on Monday, they will have 2 of the other bills on the House floor, and we'll stand for any questions.
The two bills you mentioned on tabs and the bus lines are going to go into the House floor? Or are you saying another?
No, other bills on Monday that are calendared are Representative Allen's school bus arm clarification bill, the stop arm, and Representative Steer has a bill clarifying the use of, you shouldn't be watching TV and videos while you're driving, distracted driving. The other, the streamlining of the busing is in Ways and Means, and we're hoping later on today in the Transportation Committee that we will be able to advance the automated driving vehicle both to the Public Safety Committee, and then also there's a clone of the bill in Commerce that we hope to get a hearing on as early as next week. We've been waiting.
You mentioned the autonomous vehicles bill is stalled right now in committee. Is the reason you're holding this press conference is because you believe that Democrats won't vote it out of committee this afternoon in transportation? Have you gotten indications that they do not support this?
When we rolled out the bill, I worked with our co-chair, walked through the bill with him. There was a couple of concerns that they did share. We have addressed those concerns in the committee. We've gone over the new version of the bill that's revamped that highly addressed many of their concerns, and we expect a vote today whether they support moving it on to the next committee. The bill's still a work in progress, but we need to continue the work here if we're serious about bringing this technology and innovation to Minnesotans. And so we want to have the bill advance to the next committee so other members of the legislature can discuss other parts of the bill. And we've always made a commitment since the very beginning that it's a work in progress, and I'm willing to work with the committee and the legislature and stakeholders, and we've been doing that, but we've ran out of time on other committees to take up a vote, not of our own doing.
Could you go over some of those concerns you say you addressed in those conversations?
Yes, 1 second here. Some of the things that we addressed were weight limits on the bill. Initially, we want to enable like robo-taxis, driverless vehicles to get people from point A to point B. So we put a weight limit in there to about 10,000. And so that alleviated some concerns about autonomous trucking. I don't know that the legislature's there for that technology, and that's not the full intent of this bill. And so that was a big concession that we did. Accessible vehicle partners. We've heard a lot, and I've talked with many people about accessible vehicles and the challenges, but this is also an opportunity. The technology offers a lot of innovation and potential for people that are transit dependent to have more independence and reliable, safe transportation. And so we've added provisions in there to mandate that if you call a robo-taxi, an automated vehicle, if they don't have a wheelchair accessible vehicle that works, they will refer you to somebody that does. Another issue is the support system. If there's an issue with the vehicle, that somebody in the United States that understands the driving laws and has a valid driving permit be the support person. That's included in the revisions. We've also included a study on labor, the economic impact, and congestion impacts. That's included in the bill. That wasn't originally. And then also MnDOT wanted some tighter permitting framework, and we've agreed to that. I think it's important. And so we've made a lot of concessions. We think the bill is ready to go on to the next committee. It's not ready for the House floor, but Minnesotans want innovation. They want the popularity of these vehicles. They've tried them out in other states and love them, and we think Minnesota shouldn't be left behind.
It sounds like the study portion of that was drawn from, I'm guessing, Representative Sensor-Murrah's bill on that. Are there differences between that bill and the study that you guys are now saying that is in this revision?
It probably is a little bit different. I don't want to speak for the representative, but I will say that there are representatives that do not want this technology in their city. And I think that is not to the best interest of Minnesotans. It's not to the best interest to the economy. When you talk to people from the Minneapolis-St. Paul airport, they obviously know what's going on in other major cities and airports in terms of travel, business travel, tourism. This is the technology that Americans are embracing, and Minnesota shouldn't be left behind.
In other places where they've instituted Waymo, the employment numbers, there were 20 to 25% of the rideshare folks lost their jobs. So I'm wondering what your level of concern is for that and what you may be able to do to address it.
I think that's an important concern. That's why we have the study in there. But again, in other cities that have had driverless vehicles, there is Waymo, and then there are still other transportation network providers like Uber and Lyft. I think a person's highest and best potential should be realized. We're in favor of providing incentives to reemploy and retrain people to higher and better uses. We heard arguments like that when there was automated teller machines, that all these bankers were going to lose their jobs. There is no shortage of bankers in Minnesota or in the country. And so you can't stop the inevitable evolution of technology and society. And while there's a concern and a shared concern, we're going to address that, and there's a few different ways that we might be able to do that. But we should not hold up innovation in Minnesota that Minnesotans demand that will provide a lot of opportunity for us and hold up the bill in committee.
Representative, my preliminary reading of the Senate bills, I don't see a mandate for a human to sit in the driver's seat. Can you clarify that?
My understanding is that that is one of the requirements in one of the bills that'll be heard. I think it's Senator McEwen's bill. Maybe does a little bit more on the trucking side. Let me look at my notes real quick. But that was my understanding.
Fees. The transportation system doesn't pay for itself, right? You pull money out of the general fund, there's this huge list of projects that are on MnDOT's to-do list. Tab fees help pay for that, so if you knock that down, what next?
The state of Minnesota has a spending deficit, but we're not short of cash. Our revenues are growing, and we will use general fund revenues to offset that. And actually, in the last transportation, we slowed down some general fund revenues that are supposed to be dedicated into the transportation fund. We have the money to backfill that just in general funds.
I mean, that's all taxpayers, not just people that drive though. So why should someone who doesn't drive subsidize people's tab fees?
Well, because you use the transportation system to get groceries to the grocery store, you use the transportation system to get principals to their schools, you use the transportation system to get doctors and ambulances to the hospitals, and so there is a shared benefit of a good transportation system.
Do businesses like Waymo need you guys to regulate them to come here? I mean, if you guys don't pass anything on this, could they just move forward and continue on with their plans?
That question is a little bit, I think Minnesota statute's a little gray area that's undefined. That's why this passing a bill and some framework for this is important, to set up a regulatory system that people that want to invest in Minnesota can have some assurances that they're going to invest millions or more, hundreds of millions of dollars into Minnesota in time. We want to say we're open to innovation, and in addition to just the automated rides that would be provided, there are extra services and cottage industries that would come about this, from engineering, maintenance, technology. The previous question talked about the workforce will evolve, and those jobs are higher paying jobs than an Uber or Lyft driver has now. And I would love to, one of the testifiers at our bill hearing was from the Minnesota State of Higher Education, the Transportation Excellence Center, where they teach students about automotive careers and technology. And I think that'd be a great partnership to help Minnesota's workforce emerge into these new jobs that will be created because of autonomous vehicles.
The bill that would have established the study also had a component that would have delayed sort of the implementation until said study could be completed. Is that something you guys are wholly opposed to? Is there maybe some wiggle room on that?
I think delaying the implementation of autonomous vehicles is a non-starter for industry. It's a non-starter for innovation. We've seen autonomous vehicles are here now. They're operating for years in other parts of the country. The operational systems, the safety of it is well documented, millions of miles of road travel and rides. And so the technology is here. There's no reason to delay implementation while you study it more.
The five of you probably all represent rural or at least like far suburban kind of districts. Wondering if you guys, any of you actually expect Waymo to operate in your districts?
I've invited them to Lakeville.
I live in Delwyn, we're right outside the Beltway, so, in the district, so. And we use,
Do you expect Waymo?
yeah.
It will come up there, you think?
Yeah.
I mean, that might not be, on day one. I don't know that that's their business model. It takes a lot of investment to come into a city anyways. And so I think if I understand their business model, they're more in the core city, rides to the airport and the downtown areas, the entertainment zones. But obviously, if you've seen in other parts of the country, they slowly expand as the demand is there, and they set up their business model. Just like if you opened up a Subway store, you might open up in a busy corner first, and then eventually, as you get your feet underneath you, you're going to venture out into other neighborhoods.
Rep. Koznick, you're running a bill that would unwind the greenhouse gas rule in regards to highway expansion. What's the idea there, and how do you think about climate and transportation generally?
Well, I think, for autonomous vehicles, they're almost all electric vehicles. So in that sense, the autonomous vehicles should be passed and explored in Minnesota, because if your super high priority is the environment, those cars apparently are better. When we talk about making driving in Minnesota more affordable. The number one thing that the greenhouse gas mitigation bill that was passed during the trifecta, that has made driving and owning a vehicle and maintaining our road system in Minnesota nothing but more expensive. It's driven up the cost of doing regular projects, and we'll hear about that a little bit later today as well, that will drive up the cost of construction projects, according to MnDOT, between 30 to 50% higher for the same project because of those things. So if you want to make driving more affordable in Minnesota, want to eliminate some of that waste, we should delay the implementation of that program or eliminate it because MnDOT doesn't even know how to implement it yet.
A lot of environmentalists would say we just drive too much, it's too expensive. The negative externalities like air pollution and climate and road deaths, the only way to really tackle that is to help people drive less through densification of neighborhoods, through improved public transit, and I just don't hear a lot of those things coming out of the Republican caucus.
Some of those policies might work best in the core Minneapolis and St. Paul, but they do not work across the state of Minnesota. Anything else? Well, thank you for being here. I'd like to think you're here for me, but I know that there's another press conference after us, but you don't have to tell them that you just tell them that you were early for them and weren't here to see us. Thank you.